Human freedom involves our capacity to pause between stimulus and response, and in that pause to choose the one response toward which we wish to throw our weight. Dr. Rollo May in The Courage to Create wrote those words decades ago. And I'm wondering, what if, within that very pause, we were to develop a plan, an objective way in which we could more accurately choose what he calls the one response toward which we wish to throw our weight? We actually can. And today I'm going to discuss the core essentials on how to go about doing precisely that. The world of health, wellness, and high performance is rife with panaceas. After all, how else can an influencer capture our attention unless their solution, in quotes, fixes seemingly everything? Our rational minds understand the conundrum of repeatedly falling for this shiny object shell game. And yet our emotions, the primary drivers of our actions, begs to differ. In fact, the root word pan actually references the sizzle, while aceia points to the absence of any actual steak. Okay, I might be making that up, but it's probably not that far from reality. Treating YouTube, podcasts, and blogs where our biases, for example, the halo effect, influence our perception of credible is natural. But so is downing a tub of ice cream during a late-night Netflix binge. Natural doesn't necessarily make it advisable. Originally identified by Dr. Frederick Wells in 1907, the halo effect, where an attractive or fit individual is seen as being smarter or more credible, has now become a dominant player in the age of social media. You think you're immune? When was the last time you tuned into a video featuring an overweight, balding 50-something to garner fitness insights? Would you care if he had a PhD, had done extensive research, and lectured globally on the subject? Hopefully your answer will be yes by the end of today, but studies indicate it's not generally the case. However, we don't have to take the bait. Awareness of our biases, including but not limited to the halo effect, can provide a similar buffer as knowing we like said ice cream, but keeping out of the house in favor of a healthier alternative. Similarly, by tapping into resources like Google Scholar, which simplifies the process of searching for studies that have passed rigorous internal and external standards, we're more likely to ignore the siren songs of the literally unhealthy alternative. At the same time, while peer-reviewed published research provides the gold standard when seeking out broader guidance, there are times when there's a value in peeling back an additional layer and making it all about you. Then what? Well, let's look at an example. Let's say you read a study showing eye covers and earplugs improve sleep quality by X%. Does that mean you'll garner the same benefits? We don't know. Okay, we have a partial idea due to the results of that study, but we don't know if it applies to you specifically since respondents within the study cover a wide range. So what can we do? Well, we have two options. Number one, assume it applies to you and start using eye covers. Done. This is a reasonable strategy in the case of insights confirmed across multiple studies over several years and or when determining your specific response is complicated or requires years of self-assessments. For example, the findings or guidelines related to the daily level of protein and creatine intake likely fit into this category. The second option, and the one we want to talk more about today, is to create your own N of one study, meaning a study of a single participant, you. We do this to assess whether the findings actually do positively apply to you. Obviously makes sense, but how do we do this? The first step forward is to find a time machine. We cannot make an adequate assessment without first having a consistent baseline measurement onto which we're introducing the new variable. Time machines, though, are difficult to get our hands on these days, so the alternative is to begin tracking something simple to set the stage now for your future N of one plans. In a nutshell, we're trying to answer the question, how will I know if the change makes any difference? As you look at yourself and you implement these changes, how are you going to know if it changes anything if we don't have a baseline recording? At a basic level, my personal favorites for this are morning HRV or heart rate variability and resting heart rate. We discussed a very simple, accurate, and inexpensive way of doing this on a previous episode of the Catalyst 360 podcast if you search for Dr. Marco Altini. HRV is one of the most accurate ways in which to assess the body's response to various inputs. So it makes it a very easy and obvious choice to check how you're responding to other things. At the same time, you might, either instead or in addition to, like to track things like your sleep quality, your subjective stress levels on a 1 to 10 scale, or any other thing that you can quantifiably measure and track consistently and easily. And then as you create that long-term pattern, then you can pick up on any changes you make and whether they're having a positive or negative impact as you add that in. Now, with our virtual time machine in place, or at least a month or two of data, we can make comparisons. It's time to add the variable. Maybe it's a new fueling or nutritional strategy, different sleep schedule, exercise routine, or previously mentioned eye covers, or any other addition or deletion, something like eliminating alcohol or cutting back on caffeine that you want to study in yourself. Then you're going to make that specific change. You're now the lead researcher in a valuable, potentially life-shifting study about you. No willy-nilly, I'll try a little of this occasionally. I mean, that's fine, but that's not what you're doing here. You identify one and only one variable to adjust, and then you study those results over a specific period. It's not less caffeine, generically. It means making a specific daily change from maybe 3 12-ounce cups between 6 and 11 a.m. to a maximum of 18 total ounces during the same period for 30 consecutive days, while you measure something like the HRV or resting heart rate or subjective energy levels that we talked about before. Next, control the variables. If I'm curious about the effects of adjusting caffeine intake, but I also change my exercise routine and sleep schedule, then we don't know if the caffeine is what made the impact. We can't control everything, but as you go through this process, try to minimize additional variables through this process. And the final step, assess the results, rinse, and repeat. Did the change create a measurable benefit worth continuing, or was it negligible? Or maybe even it produced a negative response. It's important to know. With the personal riddle solved, at least for now, in your current situation, we can then move on to exploring our next intriguing personal question. Additionally, you now have a baseline tracking dialed in with all your extraneous variables controlled, at least to a point, which makes your next round that much easier. Thank you for joining us for this abbreviated version of the Catalyst 360 podcast. I'm Dr. Brad Cooper of Catalyst Coaching 360. If you have any questions about bringing best-in-class coaching to your organization, your EAP, please reach out anytime. Results at catalystcoaching360.com or visit the website catalystcoaching360.com. And if you have any questions about pursuing your own career as a health and wellness coach, please visit our Institute site at catalystcoachinginstitute.com. Make it a great rest of your week. And now it's time to be a catalyst.